we have to keep it as short as possible. So that really, helps him to, impress us as a profile. I would actually want to, share my screen so I can just give you a brief detail or a difference. Malika, can you just help me with this? It says the host has disabled the screen sharing.
I think you can share it now, sir.
Okay.
Right.
Can you see this?
Yes, I can see this.
Okay. Right. So first thing first, now on my left of the screen, if you can see, this is a typical sample of a resume where the information is very crisp and clear. So few basic pointers, and I know who this Dr. John is. So I know what is his career objective. I know what is his basic qualification, like, 2-3 words or maximum one line. And I know about his qualification. I know about his professional experience. I know about his education in depth as well. So I know, okay, fine, what kind of a person that I'm looking at. Versus on the right of your screen, if you see, there's a hell lot, that I can see where, over and above the basic information, I can see the honors and awards that this person has received, the membership and affiliations that this person has. He has done any kind of research, field work experience, professional experience, so these kind of things. That is the CV on the right hand of your screen, and on the left you can see it's a basic resume. So again, it depends where are you using it. If you're using your profile or a portfolio for applying for clinical rotations, even a CV is fine, because during that time they have ample time to go through your profile and see what kind of person is this and are you the best fit. But when you're looking forward for a residency, try to keep as crisp as possible so they know whom they are dealing with, right?
Right. Yes, that makes sense.
Any more questions that we can have before we proceed? You wanted to know about a perfect CV, if I'm not wrong, Malika. You just asked me that.
Yes, sir. So I think that this description and this example of a good CV really helps us solve the queries of most of the students and most of the medicos had in their mind, because this elaborate description is what I actually wanted. And what I can see is that if I can take a screenshot of this thing, it can be really helpful for me in the future as well. So now some more generalized question I would like to ask you that most of the students had sent in is that how can you build such a good CV? What software do you think we can use?
Again, for some time, we're coming across one word which says a perfect CV, a good CV. What's a format of a CV? I mean, these are the generalized questions which I come across when I interact with the students. Remember one thing: there is nothing called as the perfect CV. There's nothing called as the best CV. It's all about what achievements do you have. Let's say you've got 100 achievements, but would you want to portray everything? So let's say, for example, you won some, some very, very small prize in some kind of a thing. So would that be the basic highlight? Of course not. But what are the main key pointers that you think are the turning points that you really have in terms of achievements? Push them forward as much as you can. So that becomes the highlight. So as I said, there's nothing called as a perfect format or the best CV or the perfect CV, but I just, would want to share one of the CVs, of one of my student, which you can see on your screen. So I have, hidden some key information for security purposes. But if you can see, I can see some objective over here, some basic details on the top. Then the objective, why are you looking forward? What are you exactly looking forward for? So reading that one line, I understand what exactly is he looking forward for. Education, just crisscross education details, that's sufficient. And then the USMLE scores, if you've taken, of course, at this stage, I expect you to write down all the USMLE scores. For me, work experience in short. Now, many times, I don't know if you've come across such CV which says, okay, fine, I was working for ABC hospital or ABC company. And then they write, okay, fine, in that, what was I doing? So I was responsible for doing this. I was responsible for ABC. We don't need those details. One-liners, one key highlight, and that's sufficient. So this is how the attention would be attracted towards your CV. That's the key point over here. Clinical experience, if you have any, and a basic few focuses. Again, internship experience. Now, again, I wouldn't say this is a perfect CV or this is like one of the best CVs. I would not say that, because here again, I can see the same thing. Assisted senior doctors diagnosed the disease. Of course, you are meant to do that. That is expected out of you. So, putting too much of information would just put the program directors off. That is one of the things that we would want to avoid. So the purpose of me putting on this CV over here is just to show this is not like a bad CV, but this is equally not the best CV as well. Like, for example, if I can just pull attract your attention here, key strengths. Now I can see it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost about 15 key strengths that this person has mentioned over here. Key strengths,
Right.
3, 4, 5 is good. It looks like right from your first standard till date, you've put in all your
Hmm.
keys or your strengths. That is not really required. Few important things, like for example, what I can see on the screen is MS Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Now, is that really important for a doctor who's getting into a residency? Then yes, of course, yes. For basic, typing in notes of a patient, that's fine, but not to this an extent. So we will have to ensure that what key information goes into the CV and what not, and accordingly we will have to strike out the unnecessary ones.
Right. So I think this CV can, and in comparison to the previous CV, can contrast, because the previous CV which you showed was an example of a good CV which we can follow, which we can have as a format for us. However, I feel that this CV has too much to give and it is not up to the point, right? So I think that clears most of our doubts, sir. So now the next specific question I would like to ask you uh, is that can you start adding to your CV after you become an intern? Because there are times that, for example, a student does not really start researching, does not really do much during their first or the second clinical year, and they suddenly just realize that they want to go for USMLE, they want to go for residency in US, which is very late according to most of the time, most of the people. So now that person is in final year or is in internship.
Mhm.
Can we start building up our CV in internship itself for it to be presented for USME residency?
Well, again, it's a very debatable question. Let me explain how. Uh, During your 5.5 years of MBBS curriculum, you get almost 2008 days, right?
Right.
Times 365 days with a leap year in between, right? So that's about 2008 days. Now, during the internship year, you have not more than 365 days. Can you try and shrink the time and condense that into 365 days? That's the question. You can. The answer is not a no. The answer is certainly yes. But my point here is what you can do in 4.5 years, 5.5 years. Expecting the same to do it in 1 year is really difficult.
Right.
So yes, you can certainly do, but I would always want my student to start working on your CV, on your achievements, on your extracurriculars right from day one of your MBBS. So in the first year, it could be light, and as and when you grow the MBBS years, you can add in more clinical sides to it. But just wait 4.5 years, you're doing nothing, and directly in the fifth year, then that becomes too much, because then that time you would be also, uh, focused on your shifts, on your rotations, on your postings.
Right.
So extracting time out of that and devoting somewhere else becomes difficult.
Right.
If you're planning to build your CV after the graduation, then that would be, I mean, it's too much to ask for. It wouldn't be a good sign. So the key here is start right from the first year.
That's really helpful. So now I think we know that it's never too late. So guys, if you haven't started now, you can start building up your CV from today itself. So sir, another question to the example of a good CV is that what do residency programs, like in this context, USMLE or US residency, actually look for in an IMG CV? So because the CV being presented right now is, as you say, something which is giving something extra, which is not really wanted. What does a US residency program want in an international medical graduate CV? Anything specific which has to be there, which can glorify your CV?
Well, a few things which the program directors typically look at is one is obviously the year of graduation. So I don't know if you can see this.
Yes, sir, we can see this.
Right. So these are a few pointers that the program directors would look into, especially in an IMG CV. So one is, what are your USMLE scores? How many attempts did it take for you to reach this kind of a score? Was it the first attempt or the fourth attempt or any other attempt? Year of medical school graduation. So did you pass out like a two years back or 4 years back or 10 years back? Again, I wouldn't say that's an adverse effect, but again, they would still want to know when did you pass out, because even as of today I receive calls. So I've completed my graduation in 2002, 2000, 2005, 2009,
Right.
uh, and I would want to go, versus someone who says, hey, I've just graduated in 2019. So these kind of variations, they would certainly want to know what kind of a student are they looking forward for, whom are they interacting with, right? Next is the evidence of any US clinical experience. So have you done any kind of clinical rotations in the US? Do you have any exposure to the US healthcare system? How well versed are you? How many months have you spent in that particular specialty? Do you, I mean, and through that they would try to sense, are you even close to what you're aiming for, achieving for? So that's what they would want to know, and that's how they would try to analyze basis the inputs that you would be giving in through your application. The strength of letters of recommendation. Now, letters of recommendation, of course, you would be getting one from your dean, you'll be getting one from the HOD in your medical school. And again, through the US clinical experience that you gain, you also solicit at least a couple of letters of recommendation to the US physicians or the senior doctors out there on the universities or the hospital letterhead. So that really adds value to your application. Then next is the personal statement. Now, personal statement is nothing but it's all about you, that you write about yourself right from your childhood till date. How has your journey been? But you don't have to be too lengthy in the pre-medical part of it. But when it starts coming to writing about MBBS and the journey thereafter, you could be more descriptive. How was the journey? What made
Mm-hmm.
you get into this? If you want to get into pediatrics, why pediatrics? Or why you want to get into UCLA? Why would you want to get into pediatrics itself? And where do you see 4 years, 5 years down the line? So what's your aim like? So and through this, the program director needs to be convinced. Okay, fine. This looks like a dashing CV. This looks like a dashing personal statement. This looks really impressive. I mean, the first impression that the program director should have after having a look at your personal statement is like, wow, where were you for the last 10 years? I was just looking out for a doctor like you. This is how impressive it should be in the very first look. Now, you can certainly take help from the professional editors and edit your personal statement so as to ensure that it gives that international look to your personal statement. And assuming, fast forward, like you've cracked all the levels and now you're in the interview stage. How did you perform during your interview? Because your paperwork looks hilarious, super marvelous, but do you possess the same qualities when you're talking? Now today you're talking to me, tomorrow you're going to talk to the patients. How do you conduct during your interviews? That is one of the most important key factors over here. So these are the elements which program directors would look into primarily. That does not mean that they would overlook other things. They're going to look into everything, but these are basic few key factors which the program director would look into.
Right. I think that really solves the question itself. And guys, I can ask you guys, I really want to ask you guys that you can screenshot this slide for your future references. So sir, now apart from what you've mentioned that should be always a part of a perfect CV. I also want to ask, which is also my personal question, that I've seen many of my friends and colleagues who are interested in USMLE doing researches, like they are associated with some research forum and they're doing some study in itself. So how important is a research for a CV, and how many papers do you need to publish so as to have a good curriculum vitae with a lot of researches, and so that you make a curriculum vitae so efficient that even if you do not get a perfect score in the steps, but yet your researches can help you glorify your CV. How important are researches in that aspect?
Well, again, it's a very debatable question here as well. I'll tell you how and why. Um, Many a times, I have to do research. If I have to go to the US, research is mandatory. If I have to go to the research is mandatory. This is like, the common tape that I've been hearing for last several years. But you need to understand, research, yes, if you have, definitely it is welcome. But what are we looking forward for? Like, for example, if you're looking out for the top class, top niche branches, like maybe a surgery, a neurosurgery, a dermat, an ophthal, an ENT, you're looking for radiology, then yes, research is required, because then that would add value to your entire profile, right? Because those are the top notch specialties that you're aiming at. But if you are aiming at something like a pediatrics, a psychiatry, internal medicine, family medicine, if you have a research, that's great. But even if you do not have, that's not a no-no. That's not going to be a barrier that, oh, I do not have a research, so I cannot, apply to the US or even to these specialties. So the lower the specialties, less is the competition. Less is the competition. You do not need those add-ons like the research or the publication or X number of clinical rotations, etc. So you first have to determine what specialty are you aiming at. And many at times I have come across students where they are almost going to, go in the final year or even internship year, but they're still not sure what specialty they want to get into. Now, in these kind of profiles, let's say when they're into the internship year and then they realize I want to get into a surgical field. And then, of course, in surgical fields, research would be primarily be looked upon. Now, do you think they have enough time to finish research? Now, research is not like something which can be done in a day or a week or a month or a year. It might take a longer period than what is anticipated. So, which is why try and look at what you want to get into and what are the requirements. So, the lower your specialty, less other requirements, higher your specialty, more are your requirements. So, if you're looking at surgical branches, again, I would not say you would need two research or publication, you would need 5 or 10. It's all about how you crack your entire process, because first is your USMLE scores. So let's say I need, as a program director, I'm expecting about a 250 or a 255 for a surgical seat. And you are getting me a crazy score like a 268. Trust me, for a moment, I would forget how many research have you got, or even have you got any research with you or not? Because getting that score is not easy. So score is going to make or break the deal. That is going to play around with the mind of the program directors. Recently, I was just going through one of an interview of one of the students who got through. Trust me, he had 9 publications on his name, and then he got. But does that mean that everyone should have 9 publications? That's the question in discussion. So the answer is no. You can crack your surgery seat even with 1 research. You can crack it with even 5. And if you're unlucky, and even if you have 7, you might not. Because you have the scores, you have the research, but when you started speaking during the interview, you are awful. Do I like you as a candidate? No, I would never take you, no matter what you have on your paper. So it is a comprehensive mixture of all the elements together in the most presentable manner, right? To sum up, and again to answer, I would say at least target for 2 or 3. That's the bare minimum or an average that I can suggest. But again, I would also want to add that with the statement that is not a mandate. So do not run behind it, leaving across your academics, leaving across your USMLE course and just running behind your research, that would not be a wise decision. It should be a balanced proportion. That should be your approach when it comes to research and publication.
Okay, right, sir. I think, guys, that we need to make sure what stream are we applying for, and our prime concern should be our score. So I think studying for USMLE is more important than research for USMLE. But however, any research can glorify our CV. That is true as well. Right. So I think with this explanation, we have also explained the question of how can I crack surgery residency. And I think you have explained that if you are aiming for a good surgery, for example, a neurosurgery or a cardiosurgery, you need to have a large number of publications along with a fantastic score, I think. Would you like to add on to this question, that how can one student, a foreign medical graduate, crack surgery in USMLE, when we know that foreign medical graduates are not really given preference in that?
I'm sorry, you'll have to just repeat that once.
Yes, sir. So my question was that as we know that for a surgery residency, for example, neurosurgery, we need to have some publications as well, apart from a fantastic score. But would you like to add on to this question that it was a very common question from our students that that people are interested in residency in US, but they are interested in surgery in US. So how can we ensure that we land up a surgery residency in US, knowing that US does not really prefer having FMGs as for surgeries, because it's very common for FMGs to get medicine, right?
Correct. Right. So again, so the answer to this is, it's not a strict no that you do not get a surgery residency as an IMG. You certainly do get. But again, on the contrary, I do not want to give you false hopes saying, yes, surgery is like, it's easy, you can get into. So the percentage of surgery seats, getting into the success ratio for an IMG is really low. And the reason behind it, you need to try and understand. Every country, including India, in this case, obviously US, they have fixed number of seats for every specialty. So when it comes to medicine, there are like thousands of seats, so less competition. When it comes to surgery or neurosurgery, those being the direct specialties, after giving away all the, after giving away all the seats to the local residents, the total number of seats left with them would again shrink down. So if I'm not wrong, that's anywhere between 1,300 to 1,500 total number of seats which we can contest for, right?
Okay.
Now, the entire globe is, fighting for it. If I have to compare the surgery seats with the total number of medicine seats, I would say medicine is about 7,500 to 8,000 seats, right? So that is the kind of variation, in terms of the specialties. Now, first of all, you're contesting for about 1,300, 1,500 seats. And on top of that, you need to know and understand where do you stand in terms of the impressiveness of your profile. Every student would want to be a surgeon. That's my experience. I mean, especially in the first years, if I ask the class, how many of you want to get into surgery? Almost 95 people out of 100 would want to raise their hands. Hey, I want
very true.
Surgery. But by the time the same batch, if I'm addressing in the final year or the internship year, they understand the reality that last 2-3 years has been tough. I didn't get time. I didn't do much. My CV isn't that great.
Right.
And instead of aiming for something which is unachievable, because yes, if you want to get into surgery, yes, that's what I want. But is it practical? No, that's not. So then that's when they become more mature. They try and understand that, yes, this is the reality, rather than running behind and chasing something which is not really within my reach. I might as well would want to, aim for something which is definitely within my reach. So I would not want to demotivate the students. What I could say here is try for both. Let medicine, if you think your overall shape of your application isn't really good, try and aim for medicine, but parallelly also do not lose hopes and just let out about 5 or 10 applications for surgery. You never know. If you're lucky enough to get shortlisted, we can still make it from there. But at least do not lose hopes. But if it's too low, like you have about a 220 or a 225 in your USMLEs, and then if you're still aiming at the surgical branches, then I don't think that's a good choice. Then that's a waste of an application. So try and look around for things.
Right.
Secondly, after now you know that, okay, fine, the total number of seats are less, the competition is high, which is why somewhere we do not qualify. And especially when we have been compared with global students, there is a possibility we may lack somewhere. So let's be open. Let's have the guts to accept that the problem is with me.
Right.
Many of these people come back and say, you know what, Indians ko surgery nahi milta. They don't give surgery to Indians. It has got nothing to do with you being an Indian or a Malaysian or a Singaporean. If you have it, it's definitely yours. But then have you worked enough? Do not answer me. Ask yourself, ask your soul, did you really slog? I mean, slog is an understatement here. You need to just go beyond your boundaries. Do a lot many things into surgery. I mean, we commonly say during our sessions with the students, you should eat, sleep, drink, walk, talk, sleep, talk, surgery, surgery, surgery. That's when you reach that stage. Just merely saying, I want to get into surgery is I mean, everyone can say that, but do you really get that? That's not really possible.
Right.
So that is it. And then once you know and you're really serious about things, and right from day one, you have started working on it, I guess you are one step closer to it. So first thing first, parallelly, you'll have to work on two things when you, as a first year and second year student. Listen to this carefully. As a first year and second year student, in the first year and second year, you cannot do much about surgery, right? But what you certainly do is you could work on your CV, because we do not want to waste our time later when we really are engrossed into much of clinicals. So first year and second year, try and focus on your CV. Try and do some community services and stuff like that. We will discuss that if we have relevant questions based on that. But again, try and work on your CV and parallelly start working for your USMLEs, because there are few things that you will have to work parallelly. One is your first MBBS, second is your USMLEs, third is your extracurriculars, and fourth is your research. So talking between the four all at once becomes too much. So you will have to segregate which year what is my goal, and then if you do that, I guess that's going to do wonders. Out of the step one CKCS, step one is the most toughest and the time consuming exam. So why not just finish it off in the first and the second year itself? Just prepare yourself thoroughly, because that time you do not have much to do regarding surgical branches, no matter it's neuro or general. And then third year, finish off with your step one. Third year and final year, you have lots of time to do your clinicals. That's when you can start with some kind of basic research based on the topics and the gravity of the topic. And once you're into the internship year, again, it's the pace is going to slow down somewhere. So that is when you can again work back on your USMLE, step 2 CK, step 2 CS, clinical rotations, those extra factors. By then, I assume that you've been successful enough to get some publications done of the research that you've done in the last 2.5 years, so that by the end of your graduation, you are completely ready with the package, subject to the best possible scores in your USMLE.
So guys, I think that this elaborate explanation really has really explains all our questions regarding surgery, regarding time management, regarding what should we do for step one, right? So now we need to ensure that the seats for surgery and medicine is in a ratio of almost 8:1. So we need to ensure from day one what specialty are we aiming for, and we need to work hard from day one that for your CV and for your researches and for your clinical experience, right?
One point I would want to add here, Malik, I'm sorry, but it is very important. Right from day one, student has to be very sure of, does he want to get into the US, or is he looking forward for an Indian PG?
Right.
And he be focusing on the next examination. Many times people come with this dilemma, and then, for a few months they work on the USMLEs, then they lose track, they come on the Indian PG, and they lose time. So you should not be doing this. Try and be focused on what you want. I'll give you an example, a very short example without taking much of your time. I have had students, I still have those students who have joined me for the USMLE preparation. I mean, most of them are first year students. Right from day one of their MBBS, they have joined me. And I
Right.
still know about 2 or 3 more students who have, you would not believe, they joined me for the USMLE preparation when they had given the NEET exam, NEET UG, and they
Mm.
had done with their 12th examination. They didn't even get their the list of UG college where they're going to get placed, but before that they already started to just go through it because their parents were doctors and they were very sure, if I'm going to do it in the US, otherwise I'm not doing it. So if you're that determined, I guess then you know you're bang on track and you have lots of time to work on your neurosurgery or general surgery.
Right. So I guess, guys, we need to be ensured and we need to be focused from day one. That is what I think Mr. Abhishek is here to tell us. So, sir, now not wasting any more time, we'll move on to the next question. Is that so? This new scheme of pass and fail, will the pass or fail system for USMLE Step One shift more weightage to your CV? Will it affect your? Will your CV affect this system because this new system of pass and fail? So will it pay more weightage to your CV?
Yes, if it comes into existence, the answer is yes. To what I know is it is proposed that they are planning to make this change with effect from the 1st of January 2022. But then they have nowhere said that yes, it is confirmed and this is what we are going to do. So it's the idea which is proposed. Mostly it is in favor of the change, but again, it's not 100% confirmation yet. But again,
Okay.
assuming that it's going to go into the pass fail, then yes, you tell me, there's nothing left with you in order to defend yourself in terms of your expertise. So at least as of today, step one, you have a score. So let's say you have a 194 out of 280 and I have a 260 out of 280. Both of us
Right.
would be pass. So how is the program director supposed to judge both of us? Because at the end of the day, both have us passed. I've
Right.
taken all the efforts, but you haven't. And both of us are at the same level. So
Right.
this is definitely one thing which is going to pinch all the students,
Mhm.
and which is why the focus will now shift to your CV or the extracurriculars that you have as add-ons or accolades. Because the only thing that you have is only one thing, that's your step to CK. Now let's take an example. You have a 260 on your step to CK. I have a 260 on my step to CK. You've passed step one. I've passed step one. You've passed CS. I have passed CS. It's exactly the same.
Right.
Where will the focus shift? Now that is how it will shift on your CV. So what all things have you done? How many research, how many publications, or how many months of rotations, or extracurriculars, or anything different that can really please me. So again, guys, working on CV, that's the punchline here.
Right. So, sir, now adding to what you just said, that we have discussed research, we have discussed the scores, but now in this pass and fail system, how much of elective work do we need? That how much of benefit of clerkship versus observership and the rotation? How much is it needed in your CV?
Well, this is the answer. No matter what ship that you want to board, all of them are ships at the end of the day for us. No matter it's
Right.
ship, is the observership, is the internship or externship, or it's a preceptorship, all of them are ships at the end of the day, right? People have
Right.
those fancy names. Trust me, these names are given by students. If you go to
Right.
the western part of the world, they would not really call as the clerkship and electives and stuff like that. But again, this is like the Indian way of addressing. And one common FAQ that I come across is, so after I graduate, I will not have any opportunity of touching the patient and I will just be eligible for an observership. So how to go about it? Or even if people do not know the difference between all the ships, they will say, what's the process of an observership? So by which they mean the hands-on. So we need to be very sure what we are actually aiming at, so we are clear of the entire thought process. So just let's discard all these ships and let's try and understand what exactly we should be aiming at. Number one, electives. Yes, electives are nothing but hands-on clinical experience where you touch the patient, perform on the patient, but in the capacity of a student.
Right.
That is called as an elective. Now, again, unfortunately, even in India, students are confused between when do we graduate? Is fourth year called as graduation, or the internship end date is called as in graduation? So
Right.
there's some ambiguity, but let me clarify this for you. Once you're convocated, once you're done with your internship, that is when you graduate, not after your final year. Internship year is you're still a student. So
Right.
even if you apply in about the internship year, that's the best time I would say, and go to the US and do hands-on clinical experience. Now, how much to do is really based on two factors. One is the amount of time in hand, the amount of money that you wish to spend, and the permissions that you've been granted from the HOD or the dean to take a break for 2 months or 3 months. If they do not allow more than that, you have to come back. We don't have a choice. So that is an elective. As I said some time back, people are often of an idea that after I graduate, I will not be able to touch the patient. Here, I would like to say there is a concept called as a clerkship, that even after you graduate and you go to the US, you can still touch the patient and perform on the patient. Hands-on clinical experience is what I would say. That is called as the clerkship. This is again, there's no official term to it, but I am just trying to make it easier for you to understand. So before graduation, hands-on. Electives after graduation, clerkship, that is equally hands-on. Observership, no matter you're a student or a graduate, anytime you go, you do not get to touch the patient. So you stand at about 5 feet or 10 feet distance and just observe what is the conversation between the physician and the patient, and then you make your own notes, and that's all about observership. But my question here is to all the students: what has been your role? What have so since there's not a value, letter of recommendation that you bring back is equally going to be an average, weighted letter of recommendation. It's not going to be like a wow factor. So
Right.
first thing, try to go to the US as a student. Even I would be of that opinion. But if it is not possible and you're trying to go out of your way just because you're reaching that deadline of student versus graduate, then I would not really want you to take those efforts. But if
Right.
it's easily possible, please do it. One important difference I would say, yes, although the US hospitals would accept you as a graduate even after after your graduation for your hands-on, the percentage is less, right? So for electives, it's like
Right.
widely accepted, but for clerkships, it then becomes a funnel. So you would have difficulty in soliciting one of the spots for the clerkship, but that's how it is. So you need to know the difference. Observerships are available in plenty, but that is not recommended. I leave the choice up to you. Now, what are the benefits of US clinical experience? One is the letter of recommendation that you get from the US senior physician on the
Right.
university or the hospital letterhead. You also add value. I mean, those add value to your CV or your profile or / resume that we've discussed. About 2 or 3 hands-on US clinical experience is good. You may come across some students, what, I've done 12, I've done 6, I've done 8. That's when people start getting tense. Oh shit, my profile is weaker than his. Will I get accepted? Do not worry about that. The number is not important. What you've done during those 2 months or 3 months, that is important. What value add do you get? That is more important. During those 2 or 3 months, try and understand what has been the life cycle of the hospital or life cycle of a patient. That is important. How do you, talk to patients, treat the patients, because you are jumping from an Indian medical system or a healthcare system to a US healthcare system, which are poles apart. So adjusting to their culture, that is important, which is why the US clinical rotations are done. And a typical good time to apply is about 6 to 9 months in advance before the intended date. So either you can start applying in the mid of the final year or the early internship year. That is the best time. So if you just follow these timelines, I am dead sure you will not have any sort of trouble in soliciting one of the seats for your US clinical rotations.
I think that explains the question very well. And I think that we can all remember this tagline that applying 6 to 9 months in advance and internship is the best time to do so. Okay, sir. So now a question which is not in relation to this is something which most of my classmates have been asking. That we people for our local CVs that we need to apply for any post in any organization or somewhere, we usually include our extracurricular activities in that as well. So like my college, I would like to give an example. Like we have theater, we have choir, and we have plays, etc., which may not always be of medicine as the honor.
Mhm.
Do you think that including those extracurricular activities, your extra skills, like you are a bass player, you're a pianist, and you've participated in many theaters, can it be helpful in CV perhaps?
Absolutely. Anytime. Anything that you have achieved, do not forget to pen it down on your CV in the most crisp ever manner. Because you do not know what will work in your favor and what will not. So let's say you've mentioned tons of things regarding pediatrics that you've done, right?
Right.
But at that point in time, maybe me as a program director, I'm in a different mindset. I'll give an example, a small example. We had a student a few years back, and once in her lifetime, just once, she had done horse riding. She
Right.
was a professionalist. She'd not taken any kind of a course or any kind of professional, nothing. Just once in her lifetime. That's it. And then she asked, what should we do and what should we not, and things like that. We asked her to, like, just check around with the residents and nurse, because those are the best resources that you can extract information about the program directors. Somehow we just got to know, because you can do LinkedIn, you can do Google, you can find out, there are ways to find out what are his interest areas or not. And then
Right.
absolutely, when this person was getting interviewed, trust me or not, 45 minutes these guys were just talking about horse riding.
Wow.
They didn't give a shit about pediatrics that she was actually applying for. So you don't know, maybe the person sitting in front of you has done some kind of theater in the past that may have a separate attachment. So it's all about playing with his mind. What few things may work in your favor, few things may not. But if you've done something, let's put it on board. So it helps, it works.
I think that explains the question. And now I would like to encourage all my classmates, all my friends, and all the viewers here that if you are good in anything, like if you're good in piano, if you're a good pianist, and if you want to take part in any theater and musical, do it, and please note it down in your CV. Right. So, sir, because we are very short of time and we have like only 10 to 8 minutes left in our meeting, I would like to end. I would like to ask you just 2 or 3 more questions, like
Mhm.
managing these extracurriculars now. As the question is again that we are studying for USMLE, we are managing the classes, and so do you recommend something else as well? What about volunteering and such options like that?
Volunteering is the best thing that you could ever do, because over and above your clinical rotations, USMLE scores, interviews, what they also look at is volunteering or community service. At this
Right.
stage, I told you some time back, start working right from the first year. So when I'm saying right from working from the first year, meaning join some NGOs. Maybe you can start looking at if there's any kind of affiliation in India for the UNICEF or the CRY Foundation or any local NGOs. Just try and get associated with them. Second thing that you could do is any kind of voluntary experience. Just Google voluntary experience in India, or if even if you're going to the US for some kind of clinical rotations, and if you think you will find some time, you're going to stay for a month or two more, and you want to solicit some voluntary experience in the US, just Google out, you will get a huge endless list of where you will find. So just get associated, because the main idea of the volunteering experience is, or the program director, what they look into is community service. What
Right.
has been your contribution to the society? How much have you contributed? How are you connected with with the people around? What have you done, etc.? Because sitting in a closed room and studying for 18 hours a day, it's quite possible,
Right.
right? And you may end up getting about a 250 plus kind of a score. But then that's quite obvious. That's quite natural. Uh, you know, balancing your studies, your MBBS, your USMLEs, and then also contributing to the society, and then juggling between the two and the three, I would say, and then balancing everything, and then excelling through all of that. That is what is important. So then I know that, okay, fine, this person is a multitasker, and that really helps.
Right, sir. So I think that explains the question very well, that volunteering is very important. So to add on to that, I would like to say that leadership skills, your volunteering experience, your experience in any NGO as well as any organization really, really helps. So to that, I would like to ask all my viewers who are not AMSA members to become AMSA members and join the organization, because that is going to add into your volunteering effort as well.
Absolutely.
So, right. So yes. So add on to that, another question that I would like to ask you is that now I'm an intern and I did not apply for any elective or any clerkship. So is it worth dropping a year for electives?
I wouldn't really say so, because even if you do an elective, you tell me, how long are you proposing to do an elective in the US?
Right.
How long? 2 months?
Yeah, let's say 2 months. Yes, 1 month, 2 months.
Even if you said 3 months for that matter, is it
Yeah.
really worth dropping an academic year at the cost of 2 months or 3 months? So I would not really advise that, because at the end of the day, it is going to, it's a wastage of a year. So I've told you some time back, when is the right time for you to, start applying for electives, right? So start applying right now. If you're in the final year or the internship year, start applying right now. And if you're not, if you're like a junior, wait a couple of years. You do not get any elective or a clerkship opportunity anywhere, no problem. Come to Logic West, we will place you at any city of your choice based on the availability. And then we at Logic West will also be at some point in time be helpful and useful for some students. So that should not be a problem.
Right. So, sir, I think we are coming to the end of the webinar. Would you like to add on to this topic for the ending? Any vote of ending or something?
Well, there are a lot many things, but if I just start on and on, it might be an endless webinar.
Right.
But yes, just one thing is, whatever that we've discussed, again, I'm not going to say something different, but start early is the key here. Get the highest possible USMLE scores is the key here.
Right.
Do not run behind 10 letters of recommendation and 20 letters of recommendation. Do not get I would say, don't get follow prey for all these things. Have a proper research done. And if you do not have any kind of information, do not hesitate to either contact AMSA India, or directly you can contact LogicQuest,
Right.
and we'll be more than happy to assist you. That is one thing that I would want to say, because as I said, every now and then it becomes really tiresome for us to help students to unlearn what wrong things that they've learned, and then help them with the right learning.
Right.
So that is very important here. Do not just fall prey for all these things.
Right. So I guess that's the end of the webinar. On behalf of Team AMSA and all the participants present here, I would again like to thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Abhishek, for taking time out of your schedule and guiding all our lovely viewers here for all their doubts and questions, and guiding their wonderful plans. It was indeed a very enlightening, and I personally learned a lot in this webinar. So I'm looking forward to making a good CV for myself now. So now, to all our lovely viewers who are still with us during the webinar, thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for following the rules. And we hope that this session helped you a lot to answer your queries. But we were only able to ask these many questions because of the time constraint. We have already passed the limit, and we have taken this webinar for at least 50 minutes. So I would like to also tell you that the AMSA team will be sending you an post-event form from the AMSA external team, which will contain the information of Mr. Abhishek as well as the AMSA team itself. In case you have any more unanswered questions which you would like Mr. Abhishek to answer, do send an email on that account. Right. So, apart from that, you can always contact us at amsaindiaexternal@gmail.com. And I would also like to recommend you to the second session of this webinar series, that is overview of residency in US, which is on 25th of May 2020, wherein we'll discuss the benefits of residency in US, how does it differ from your residency in your own country and in US, and many other options. So stay tuned, we will see you again. So goodbye guys, stay safe, wash your hands, wash your phone, clean your phone, and social distance. So I will be ending this meeting now. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.